what I'm going to do now is get into my presentation to let you all know how I actually came across Anthony. And I've gotten some shit from people for, kind of bringing this back up again, talking about this, saying, hey, you were soft on him before, and now you're going all hard at him. You were just, you were softballing it before. But I want to explain what it's basically, I call it like podcasting 101. So let me bring up my presentation here. So I call this podcasting 101. Okay. So when you have a podcast channel, and especially with a very controversial guest and someone that you're trying to get on your channel, you have to do a couple of things before you do that. One, you have to have a topic that you want to engage this particular person in. You need to do your research on them. Obviously, I have done my research on Anthony at that time. I knew what was going on through his YouTube channel, through his social media contacts, watching his videos. Three, I'm sorry. When you reach out to the specific person, you have to be respectful to them. Because if you're not respectful and I go in with guns blazing on this guy, oh, you're a piece of shit, you're this and that, do you think that I'm going to get an interview with him? Of course I'm not going to. And then you obviously, once you make that contact, you want to invite them as a guest. You want to show a general interest and tell them, hey, we have a free and open platform if you want to come here and give your side of the story. And basically what I was doing was making contact with him after the botched blackout and the split from Marco Nicolini when Grand Caliber had started up. And it was probably the second time or third time Anthony went dark on social media. And he was out maybe a month at that time. So then when you have, you confirm a date and time, and then obviously you have a showtime. So when you get a guest or you want a potential guest and someone that is controversial, you have to go into it in the sense of, I want to get this person on my show. I can't go in and be a dick to them because they're just going to turn around and say, fuck yourself. I'm not going to give you an interview. So yeah, I did have to go in soft, I guess, if you want to say that, on the guy. And I have no shame. I'll show the conversations. It's probably a little hard to see because these are small, but here's my first contact back on April 13th, 2022. And I just said, hey, just watched your video. Keep holding it together, Ant. You got this open platform on my podcast. If you ever want to chat, we'd love to have you on. And that was when I was doing the first rendition of LTL podcast. And I had my partner, Primo, my co-host. I dropped the link for him, didn't hear anything. And then back now on April 21st, he said, hey, I'm not doing social media, too much hate and drama. People try to burn me and everyone that works for us. So I decided just to quit. So he was just quitting. He was going to quit. And I said, no worries, Ant. If you ever need an outlet to talk, we'd love to have you. Good luck in everything. I hope to keep your head up and keep pushing forward. So again, initiating that contact, being respectful, trying to gain that trust in the conversation to have him come on and do something on my show. And at that time, he wasn't doing anything. So to have him as a guest, it would have been pretty big. All right, so we're going to go over to, if I can get these slides to work, bear with me for a second here. All right, next slide here. Go back into presentation mode. I don't know if you all can see this. All right, cool. So a little while after that, I reached out to him again. Said, hey, hope this finds you well. I just wanted to touch base and ask if you had posted an official statement before you left social media. It would be something we could read on air to solidify your position on everything. If you haven't made one, no problem. But if you decide to do and make one in the future, it'd be great if you could share it with me and I can let the viewers know your position. Even if it's a recorded statement, it would probably help a great deal. I find your story fascinating and would like to help you get your statement out any way possible. Thanks again for your attention. Loving your content on IG. Keep up the great work, Brian. So now, a little while later, he responds back to me, says, hey, and So what was it say here? And I asked him about, hey, do you want to come on? He said, send me a list of questions, scenario you'd like, and I'll answer it. And I'll look over you. Say, hey, Anthony, here's the questions. I probably lost the thing about asking him questions, the clip. So I apologize on that. Say, hey, Anthony, here's the questions I have in mind. Brief history, you, TPG, up to current date. My primary focus is to treat you with respect and hear your story. I respect anything and won't talk about. I hope you can grant me a few minutes of your time to chat, catch up, let everybody know where you've been. Wanted you to see yourself succeed, and I think you truly can. I admire your passion and drive. And I can't blame, listen, I can't blame the guy for that. He fucking, for a while there, it was looked like, every time he was beaten down, this fucking guy had a lucky shoehorn up his ass. Horseshoe up his ass, and just could seemingly find a fucking way out of it. But ultimately come down after this time, it was all just smoke mirrors, scams, and deceptions. So we can do an interview on your terms, live or recorded, uploaded, whatever you prefer. And by the way, I can't see the chat right now, so I apologize, but I'm going to pull that up in a second after I get kind of through this. So hope you trust me and the best intentions for both of us. Thanks, Brian. So my fucking stupid ass, what do? I send him all the questions. So there's a lot of legitimate questions here I had to ask, a lot of questions about the blackout. I fucking prepared for this pretty well. I prepared for this interview pretty fucking well. And, pat myself on the back here a little bit. But really, back to the beginning of his first history, of starting in the business. And I wanted to ask ultimately a ton of questions that was going on. You can see that the blackout, the $2,000 Facebook group, because there was a lot of rumors about that. At this time, Watch Nicholas is totally fucking coming at this guy, and I wanted to know about that as well. And if I can go to the next slide here, which is not working, let's just go here. Again, some more questions. Any interactions with Watch Nicholas? Asked him about Grand Caliber. Is it a true split, or is it TPG 2.0, et cetera, et cetera? So, didn't hear anything, and I reached back out, basically said, hey, had you had time to look over the questions? And then he finally got back to me at about 2:00 in the morning the next day and said, hey, Brian, I read the questions. Great questions, and I have answers to them all. I decided, though, now I'm going to remain quiet and move in silence until I'm ready to come back. I will come back and give people more to talk about than they ever have now. But for now, I'm focusing on my business and nothing more. I do appreciate neutral ground. You and your partner, my co-host, looking for hard evidence and gossips over facts. Oh, wow. The chat is actually starting to work now. That's awesome. Looking for hard evidence over facts and gossip. I'm waiting for the same thing to come to light because I actually respect your approach. Again, treating a potential guest with respect to get them on your show, so then you can get into the tougher questions. I promise you an exclusive interview to answer any and all questions. I will wait, though, until our first couple of videos back, and I will let you know I will have more. Anthony, thanks for taking into consideration. I appreciate you getting back to me. Our platform is open and ready to when you want to emerge. I look forward to our exclusive interview in the near future. Keep moving forward. Again, I can't fucking throw salt at this guy. I can't go in at him and go, hey, you're a son of a bitch. You have to go in with some respect to get the guy on the panel. So I know I've gotten, a lot of people come at me, oh, you were softballing. Well, yeah, I'm trying to gain trust of the fucking guy to get him on the channel. So, you can't just throw fire at him because that guy's just going to stick a middle finger up and go, fuck yourself. So basically that was my run-in with Anthony. So now I'll give you a little context as to what happened. And forgive me, I lost the screenshots. So after that, we had set up a couple of times for him to come on. He had canceled on me like 3 times. And then finally, the third time, when he said he was going to finally do it, I ultimately did end up getting COVID. I was so fucking sick. I couldn't get online. And I actually canceled on him and said, hey, I'm brutally, brutally sick with COVID. I got that. What was it? The Delta variant. I was blasted for like 2 weeks. I just literally wanted to die at that point. And ultimately, the whole thing just didn't go down. But this prick takes my questions and goes over for his content that and I actually play the chat for this too, and goes over on his channel and takes my questions and makes a live out of it. But he shouts out my Instagram and my channel. You know how many subscribers I gained off that? 0, because the ultimate deal was for him to come here on my channel and do an interview with me. And even after the fact, he'll even say it in here. Oh, we're gonna get together. You know, I'm gonna. He's been respectful. I'm gonna give him the rights to an interview. That never happened. So another scam deception. But I'll play through this video so we can all see my questions being fucking used in his live. And yeah, I get pretty pissed off about it. So, and the irony about all of it, the funny thing about all of it is that when I was on JJ's panel the other night and we finally got him on air, this is literally the first time I've ever been able to speak to him. And I'm so wound up, I don't even have the question ready to say, hey, why did you fuck me over like a year ago when you said you were going to come on my channel? You used my questions for your live because you didn't have content. And then you thought by shouting me out that it was going to be okay. And then you made promise that you would do an interview or do a video, and you never even came through with that either. So it was just another bunch of fucking scamming by him. But let's play through this live, and we can all laugh together because there's going to be lots of irony here, of course.
All right, guys, I'm going to give it a couple minutes, let a couple more people hop on, and we're just going to jump right on into it. But for those of you that are already on here, I want to take a second. And the first thing I want to do is I want to, here, I'm going to scoot over a little bit because I got my phone plugged in as well. I want to take a second and I want to shout out an Instagram account that it's Let's Talk Live podcast. They have an Instagram account and a YouTube page, and we were actually scheduled to do an interview. And a lot of the questions I'm going to base this off of are questions that they
and I just forgot this. One of the times, I mean, and this made me look like a bunch of assholes to my audience at that time, because I'm putting tiles up saying that the guy is going to be on the show. He doesn't show up, or he cancels like 5 or 10 minutes out from my live. And then people are calling me a fucking moron. So it made me look like really bad. And then we caught him one time because he cancels. And then 10 minutes later, he's posting on IG that he's driving around in a fucking Ferrari out in Hollywood. So the dude never had any intention of coming back, giving me the respect to come on and do a live, but then takes my questions and goes on his channel and does a fucking Q&A. So
up with. So the first thing I want to do is give a lot of credit to them. He got COVID, and
see, emotion was there. Remember that.
Brian. Okay, so Brian reached out to me a couple months ago and wanted to do an interview talking about a lot of the stuff that people have been asking, the blackouts, the Facebook group, the split, the home invasions, everything. He sent me a list of questions.
Yeah, I remember
really,
that.
really good questions. And we were scheduled to do an interview, but unfortunately he got sick and he had to postpone.
Dude, and he didn't even, like, bro, he didn't even ask me. He wasn't like, hey, can I use your questions? It's like, we didn't get this together. Can I use your questions? No, he just takes my fucking material, goes to his YouTube channel, and makes a Q&A about it. So I don't feel bad putting his stuff up. I don't feel bad about playing his videos.
And then it hasn't happened yet. This week, we didn't have enough content to put together a really good video. So I decided doing a Q&A would be the best thing. And I'm going to use these questions. So I'd like all of you guys to go over, show Brian some love. I'm going to do another video with him, since I'm using the questions to do this interview. But we'll do another video. I'd like you guys to go over, give him a like, give him a follow, or subscribe.
Right.
His Instagram account is, see if I can get this thing to focus. It's the Let's Talk Live podcast. So I'll link that in the description below after this video is done. And then go over and follow him on YouTube. I'm going to talk with him about how we can get a badass video out to make up for not doing this interview.
Right. Yeah. Fuck you.
But I have a list of 20 questions that I think it kind of goes back from the beginning to almost to today. So I think we've got a lot of people in here. I'm just going to go ahead and jump on in now. The first question, and this is going to just pretend like a lot of you guys know most of my story and have been around for a while.
If anybody's just jumping in the chat, we're watching here is an old Q&A with Anthony Farah, the Timepiece Gentleman, where he used my questions to do his Q&A after he canceled like 5 times on me, and then just took my questions, decided to do Q&A because he didn't have enough material on his channel. So we'll keep playing.
May be fairly new and not know the whole backstory. So some of these first few questions are kind of back to the beginning of how did I get started? How did Marco and I meet? Stuff like that. So first question.
No, I get that, man. Like he said, no disrespect, Brian, but you are annoyed about him not turning up, but others have lost it. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm doing these streams. And that's why I'm shouting him out to let people know when they come across these videos, if they don't have the ability or haven't seen what has been going on, at least this word can get out there to other viewers. Because I think sometimes in this world, the YouTube world, is that the channels that we follow or the content that we follow only, just goes inside a small box or a small pot. There are billions of people across YouTube, and this algorithm spits out these videos to different people all the time. So we can get that message out there and create a group or some group of videos to get this information out there to people that might not know how deep this situation has gone. That's why I'm here, to use this platform to do that, to expose scammers and deception, and also give relevant information to true crime, because this potentially could be a big crime at the end of the day. All right, let's keep playing through here.
What got you and how did I become so interested in watches? Well,
Yeah,
since high school,
I wrote
I bought my first watch when I was a sophomore in high school. I bought my second watch when I was a junior in high school. And then whenever I graduated, as I started making money, I loved watches. I loved having a different watch for every occasion. I like different colors, different styles, different metals, different straps, everything. At my peak, I would say I had about 40 to 42 watches, anywhere from the price range of like $250 up to my most expensive one at the time was a Movado Sport GMT, which I paid $1,100 for, and that was my big boy watch. But I had 40 or so watches. I started making a little bit of money in real estate, so I sold everything and decided to step up the collection.
Maybe this is the interview that we're having.
I bought my first high-end watch in my
finally
it was a
that
Breitling.
Interview.
It was a two-tone Breitling.
Anything.
Oh, also, I've got Darby behind me, like keeping track on time and asking me questions. I'm going to go through all these questions that I've got, and I'm going to kind of look at the comments, but I'm going to try to stay on topic with all these questions. At the very end of this, I will take a minute to go back through and answer any unanswered questions. I also want to say that this video, the answers I'm going to give are like, they're real. They're the truth. They are exactly how I.
Anytime anybody has to explain the answers that I'm giving are real, that should send up some red flags.
I was feeling how Marco, the other teammates, everyone I talk about, it's going to be exactly how it was during that time. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that this video is in no way, shape, or form.
You always find that he always has to explain himself. He always has to explain himself. You ever notice that?
Meant to put anyone down, to shame anyone, to shit on anyone. That's not the intentions. My intentions are to give you guys the cold hard truth and the facts of questions that have come up and come up and come up as they happened. Again, how I was feeling, what the attitudes in the office were, what the frustrations were. This is what they were at the time of when these things happened. And I want to tell them as truthfully and like as real as they can be, because then it'll make sense of why things happen the way they did. If I come on here and I answer a bunch of questions about Covey and the blackout and all the flexing and the breakup and the robberies, and I say it like nothing was going on and there were no frustrations, it doesn't make sense, and that's what makes it look like this is all over the place. So again, this video is not to shit on anyone. It's just to answer as many questions as I possibly can to honestly, to kind of give you guys clarification, but also to just kill a lot of the noise out there, because a lot of the noise is just
The
that. It's
haters, the haters,
people making videos trying to guess what I'm doing or guess what I'm thinking or what my employees' motivations are or what it is without having any facts whatsoever. So here we go. Starting back, I've always been interested in watches. I bought my first Breitling when I was 22 years old, and it was a two-tone chronomat. I love the watch. I paid like $1,800 for it. When I went to prison for a third DUI, I got out, and that was the only thing of any value that I had left. Now, I needed some money. I needed to get back in the workforce, get an apartment, stuff like that. So my friend snuck it into the halfway house for me. He also snuck me in a cell phone, and I took some pictures and I posted it on Craigslist. I sold the watch a few days later for, I think it was like $300 more than I had originally paid for it. When that happened, I wasn't expecting to get what I paid for it, much less more than that. It got me interested in it. So I started doing some research, and I actually happened to find this course on watch trading, which I bought. And I watched the whole thing in 2 days, again, on a cell phone at night in the halfway house. It taught me a few things. I got out one day. I found this tag
Yeah, I've
Heuer on
already talked
Craigslist
about that
for eighteen
finances.
hundred dollars. I
Thank you, though.
negotiated it down to 1,300. I
I've
took
addressed
better
that in a
pictures. I
bunch of the
reposted it
streams.
on
They know.
Craigslist, and I sold it 2 or 3 days later for a $500 profit. When I made that $500, that was a like an eye opener. Like, how did I just buy and sell a watch, and I got to wear it for a few days, and then I made money? That's what first got me interested in becoming a watch dealer. When I got out of prison, I had a job at a gym, at a restaurant, and then I
No
was,
problem.
slowly slinging watches on the side. And I knew in the very beginning that I didn't have any money. I didn't have a name for myself in the industry, so I had to do something. And social media was something that I knew very well. I started a social media account. I started the
I
top.
will give it to him. He's a fucking genius on social media. He gets clicks and views. I will say that. He's got that figured out. He knows how to stir controversy. He knows how to get people to be engaged. He knows, I mean, shit, look, I'm doing a fucking stream about him tonight, so he has that capability. He has that capability. A lot of DUIs, a lot of DUIs, a lot of DUIs.
Timepiece gentleman. About a year later is when I met Marco. So I'm going to scoot over here. And the next question is, how did Marco and I meet? Well, long story short, we did a deal together in a wholesale group. And then we realized we were local to each other. We met at a Starbucks. I bought a watch from him, and that was it. A week later, I called him up and asked him if he could get me another one of the same watches. We met at the Starbucks again, did another deal. And then another week later, we did another deal. And we got to realizing, like, if I could only buy watches where he was buying them, and then he could sell watches where I was selling them, we would have like a crazy team. I was really good at marketing, and I knew social media, and he knew a lot about watches. He had a lot more money than I did at the time. And he also had a dealer, like a dealer network and references. So all the things that I lacked, he had. All the things that he lacked, I had. We decided to go all in and just
Appreciate
go
that
50
motion.
50. And that was the start of our journey. Now, one of the questions on here is, which one of us decided to start TPG? Now, what TPG, if you'll notice the name is the Timepiece Gentleman, that was me. It was a solo thing that I started 3 days after I got out of jail, like for good, or out of the halfway house. So I originally started that. Marco had his own watch company whenever he met me. And after a few months of us going 50 50 and trying stuff, he decided to dissolve his company, and we're going to run it all under one brand, because I had already started building some traction on social media. Here's another question. Through meeting, you and Marco develop a friendship. That was a question I just answered. Yes, we developed a friendship. Again, in the very beginning, he complimented all my weaknesses, and I complimented all of his weaknesses. Let's see.
The irony.
What was the core vision and thought process behind TPG? The vision, or the core thoughts whenever I first
I
started
probably
this
should have
is,
just
I
read
wanted
the
to be a watch dealer
questions
because I love watches, and I
and
loved
fast
the
forwarded
freedom and
that in.
flexibility of having this. And the one thing that like initially made me blow up on Instagram was I was talking prices. Is I was, not afraid to kind of go behind closed doors and talk about the stuff that jewelers
Yes.
were afraid to. If you can
Yes.
think back to before the social
With
media
the
craze,
split.
anytime you went to a jewelry store, people if they wanted pricing, you always had to go to the back. Whenever you brought your inventory or your stuff in to get it looked at, they always had to go to the back, always go to the back. And people just like always afraid to talk prices. So I started talking prices. And that when I did that, that's what kind of really propelled our Instagram account. Let's see. Was it true we had a retail? Oh, before we had a retail space, you were selling watches on your kitchen table and your apartment. Yes. When Marco and I first met, we were both a backpack
Yep.
dealer. Uh, we were working out of Starbucks, working out of my apartment. I had a nice apartment. It was spacious.
Hey, it is what it is, Perry.
The summer after the
Scammers
winter
will
that we had
scam.
met, we hired our first part-time employee, and he came to work with. So three of us were working off my kitchen table. Eventually, we grew to a point where we had 2 or 3 clients coming a day. We're running this retail business out of an apartment complex, and the apartment actually was 2 things. The apartments, one, they didn't like all the traffic coming in and out, and two, we got to where we had a little over. I remember we had a little over $1 million in insurance, and I didn't have insurance on my safe. So we got to thinking, we got to looking at commercial insurance policies, and realized that we could not get a jewelry insurance policy living in a residential address. So that's when we looked up office addresses. Our first office was a co-op shared space at a WeWork studio on the 9th floor. And you guys remember us going back and outfitting that. It was badass. Like we had our own real office, and that was the first time we felt like it. We felt like a real business. So we go in there. At this time, we had let that first employee go, and I had met Dylan. I've talked about him before. Dylan messaged me for almost 2 years, almost every day through Instagram,
That's the
sending me
dude from
photos of stuff and
Connecticut.
videos of watches, and always commenting on the stuff that I did. And then just one day, I was like, you know what? We need an employee. We need a personal assistant to go in here and help us do all these back end things. I reached out to Dylan. He came in. I offered him a job, and so we had our little 3-man team working out of that co-op shared space.
I think I'm going to pause this for a second. I think at this point, I legitimately think, and I may be wrong here, because maybe it was stirring in his mind the whole time. I think he actually was probably, and I know I'm going to get called out for this. I think he was actually grounded at this point. It sounds to me like a start of a legitimate business. Now, it could be there was a master grand plan in all of this. As it grew bigger, you bring in these investors, you bring in this consignment, you start living off the lifestyle of that money, and you're shifting this money constantly. That could have been the overall, and ultimately that's what happened. But I think right now at the core of it, it sounds pretty legit if you're listening to it. Now, I don't know, because I wasn't in the room when these three were having conversation back then, if this was a grand scheme to turn this into something bigger and get, like I said, investors consignment money, consignment watches and investors money, and blow this thing up so they can live this flex lifestyle, or at least he can. Am I wrong?
Instagram was going good. That was what drove our business. And I forget exactly which month it was, but I had built up the Timepiece Gentleman, the original Instagram account, to about
Harry.
140,000 followers. And this was after the Daniel Mack video, which you guys know that Daniel Mack walked up and asked us about a video, or asked.
Now, we think that was done on purpose. And if anybody doesn't realize who Daniel Mack was very famous on like Instagram. I don't think TikTok was around then. Maybe TikTok was in its very infancy. But Daniel Mack used to be a creator that used to go up to people as they were like driving out or walking in the street, and they would say, hey, he would ask like, hey, what do you do for a living? Or what did you do to drive this very expensive car? And do you mind talking about it? And they would talk about it. Or they would say, hey, what did you do to get this very expensive apartment? And they would like bring him into the apartment and let them look around, or whatever, just whatever content was. So that's essentially David Mack. But when that happened, that was kind of the key turning point for TPG, their launching point. That actually blew them up. And there's a lot of speculation that Anthony may have reached out to him to set up that specific scenario to get him that launching point. Maybe he had to pay him some money or do some favors for him or whatever. But that's where a lot of people think was the catalyst for that launching point for TPG. Because they had, it's ironic. If I could ever find the video, you go back, I think they had an R8 or is it R10? I might be wrong on that. R8? I think he had the R8, and he drove out and it had the TPG logo on the car, and it just was like too set up. It just looked weird, you know?
Me, what I did for a living, and I shouted myself out. That pushed a lot of traffic to the
R8?
page. We gave him a Rolex. That video went viral and sent us a ton of business.
It was an
Shortly
R8.
after that, we had started YouTube because I had been watching Roman Sharp. I'd been
That's
watching
it.
Watch Eric,
Gave him
Paul
the
Thorpe.
Rolex.
I've been watching several of those guys, and that's kind of how I was learning about
I'm trying to refresh my mind, but thank you for that.
watches. So I decided, I'd been wanting to get on YouTube for a while. And I actually initially started by doing the same style of videos. We were doing watch reviews, market updates, talking about how to get in with the ADs. And it was just educational stuff. And it was slowly growing, but it was tough trying to come up with content. So Darby came to me one day and said, "Hey, we need something." And I didn't have any content. So I told him to grab his camera and just follow me around for the day because I had a busy day that day. And then whatever he shoots, just cut it up and let's just make it like a day in the life.
And again, I think at this point, it does sound legitimate at this point. And I just don't know if this was the overall scheme at this point to take this to another level, to start the scam. Because it sounds to me right now he's actually being pretty legitimate. But there's going to be a turn somewhere in here. There's going to be a turn somewhere in here.
Video and see how it goes. Whenever we posted that video, we got 1,000 views in the first hour. And I think at that point, none of my videos had gotten over 1,000 views in the first week. So that told me right there that this is the move. I think that video ended up getting,
Sam.
25,000 views by the end of the week. So that's when I told him, I was like, we got to start doing this. We got to show more behind the scenes content and do more of this day in the life, because people are.
Bob, I think that a famous person probably has the money that they wouldn't have to walk into an AD, but it's probably possible. Yeah, kind of skip and go to the front of the line type of stuff. But if you're a multi-millionaire, I mean, what is it to pay $10,000, $5,000 over retail? It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt you. But it's in that business, it can be I have friends in low places type of thing. You get my drift?
Believe it or not, they were interested in what we actually do as a watch dealer all day. We started that. We started doing the day in the life stuff. And let's see what the next question is. How long was TPG in the retail space before you started thinking about and expanding into the social media platforms, YouTube specifically? So to answer that question, we were in the WeWork space, a lot of people, about 6 months. And we had just moved into that right at the start of COVID. So we had just moved in like in February of 2020. COVID started in March. We were out of business for 5 weeks, and then things started picking up and picking up and picking up. About 6 weeks later, that's when we got the idea to finally do the initial YouTube launch. So let's see, I'm losing some of my train of thoughts. So here's one. There was a point where I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, where we've gotten a bunch of negative press and everything. And he's asking about responding to comments and haters. And yes, this point, actually, you know what? I want to back up a little bit. I want to go back to YouTube's coming up. We're doing the day in the life stuff. The videos are getting better and better. The views are going up.
Here's the turn.
Business is blowing up. This is where we're like really starting to see our biggest rise. Then we decide it's time to, after we've gone into the Crescent, we decide it's time to go to a much, much bigger store. We started looking at spaces around. We were looking at that space in downtown, and I had the idea that I want to build this, $2 million store. I wanted like a beautiful store that had, it was friendly, it was laid back, and it was unlike anything that Dallas had to offer. The idea was, or then that we had started thinking how we're going to pay for this.
Facebook group.
That's where I had this idea of, let's not come out of our pockets for it. We have a ton of people that are supporting us. We have a ton of people that want to see us succeed and be a part of it. And so my idea was to start a Facebook group. The Facebook group was going to act as kind of our wholesale outlet. So the primary focus behind that was, we have all this inventory coming in. Some of it we want to keep, a lot of it we don't, or we just don't want to. We don't have the money to stock it, and we didn't want to stock it at the time. So rather than just passing on that stuff or flipping it straight to wholesale and making $200 or $300, why not give special clients the opportunity to buy that stuff? It wasn't going to be like every bit of our
Right.
inventory was allocated to this. It was just going to be a lot
Cater
of
said it
the
straight up.
extra stuff.
Cater says he was too scared to do the interview in person. Well, we weren't going to do it in person. We were going to do it, but I know what you're saying. We were going to basically do it like this style right here. Me to the left, him to the right. And we were just going to engage in these questions. He didn't want to get hit with anything hard. And that's what we were trying to do, was gain him to get on the channel. And then we were going to hit him with some other questions that he didn't know about. Of course we were going to.
Hey, by the way, some of you guys that are in the comments just like continuously talking shit, like, what's the point? This video is actually, I'm not even going to address it. Just the guys that are in the comments talking shit, like, it's completely pointless. But anyway, we started the Facebook group, and the idea behind it was we were going to sell enough spots to raise the money to fund the build out of the thing. Now, how the Facebook group was supposed to work was, I was going to sell all the spots, and I was going to manage getting members in there. And then my team, the employees at the time, and Marco were to go in there and every couple of days pull some of our inventory and post stuff in there for sale. As people ask questions,
that'd be great.
Respond to the questions. And I just, honestly, at the time, I couldn't get people to continuously post. I would ask people, and I was doing a little bit of travel at the same time, so I would ask to have watches posted in there for sale. Watches wouldn't get posted for sale. People would go in there and ask questions, and no one would go in there to respond until days after. So, we had raised about $600,000 in 2 weeks from that group, and had 300 plus members in there. And they were asking questions and trying to get basic stuff that we promised them, and it wasn't happening. Now, I'm filming content for video. I'm traveling. I'm running the business. I'm trying to grow the business. We're doing all these things. The one more thing of me being the one to respond in the Facebook groups, it was just a lot on my plate. So I asked the staff out there to help me.
So this interview was a year ago. And if you're just kind of getting caught up, essentially what happened is the questions that he's using for this interview were questions that I was supposed to be asking him on my channel. Then he took it upon himself to go on his channel, do a Q&A, and give me one quick shout out in the beginning of the video to say, hey, go support him. No one came to my channel. And he took my material and basically made a Q&A about it on his channel. So kind of pissed about that, because I worked hard on those questions.
And it just, things weren't getting done. And it was a few months later, I decided to pull the plug on that. Now, there's been a lot of talk of the Facebook scam and the group refund, and people not, or us scamming people out of that money. Here's one thing I'll say.
Everything
to any reports of scammers or thieves, or like when we go to the blackout, is people have called me this a lot. And people have dug up everything from my entire criminal history to the house that I grew up in, to criminal histories and personal information on friends of mine and relatives and just people that come in my videos. But the one thing that no one has ever seemed to produce is a document, a lawsuit, a comment that has some proof of it backing a scam. Like, where have I scammed somebody? Where has someone come forward saying that they didn't get their refund money? Where has someone come forward from the blackout and say we made off with their consignment piece and they never got it? Where has a dealer ever come forward claiming that I have not paid them? They haven't. I know a lot of you guys watched the blackout, and Roman Sharf did a video actually a few days after we did that. And the first thing that he said was he doesn't think this is a legitimate something bad, because the morning of the blackout, he got a wire for $130,000 from me, paying for a watch that I bought from him.
That sounded like a
Now,
setup.
so my thing about it is, anyone that wants to call me a scammer, I'm just going to challenge you. Hey, if I'm a scammer, that's fine. I want you to prove it. I want you to show me the proof of where I scam someone.
We didn't have to, because you just came out about 3 weeks ago and said that you're $5 million in debt with customers' inventory and money that you have taken to fund your lavish lifestyle. The
Where did I not
irony.
pay somebody? Where has someone find a lawsuit? Like, all these things, if I've scammed people for this much money, there would be a lawsuit somewhere. There would be someone actually coming out showing proof of that. So that's all I ask. If you want to call me something, prove it. Show us the proof, and then whenever you do, I'll put my hands up and I'll admit to it. Going back to the Facebook group. So we started doing the build out. We did the Facebook group. We raised a lot of money for it. And then, I had to close the Facebook group.
Oh,
So
well,
the building was going to happen, but the Facebook group was what was going to pay for that. When I closed the Facebook group out and started refunding everybody, obviously that delays the process of the build out. Now, I know some of you guys were watching the build outs where we kind of changed our mind on a couple spaces. The problem with that was the first spot we looked at, which was a 2-story building. We wanted to get that spot really, really, really badly, because it was right across the street from the Crescent in a great location. But the current owners of that building didn't want to sign a long lease. Like, the lease options they were giving us were 1 to 2 years. And I wasn't willing to go dump, $2 million into a store I'm going to have to leave in 2 years. So that one ultimately fell through. The second space, where we talked about the fish tank, and it was in a high-rise building. That space also, we got close to finishing a deal on that,
Johnny.
but the current tenant that was in there decided they didn't want to give up their lease. And so it was just it kept being these long drawn out processes that made it look like we were just super indecisive, but there was actually legalities and stuff that kept us from getting those leases signed. But moving on from that, the next thing after the Facebook group refund was Clove. So at this point in the business, I'm doing a lot of work. I'm filming content. I'm producing. I'm coming up with content. I'm traveling. I'm running the business. I'm managing the employees.
Always notice how it's an excuse like, hey, I'm not around. I'm out on the road, so I can't be watching this stuff. I don't know what's going on there back at the office. Da 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 da. It's always something like that. No responsibility. It's always everybody else's fault.
Trying to grow the business, trying to sell watches, and we start reading the comments. Like, the comments were great, but people kept talking about us having a female presence, because at this point it was like 8 or 9 dudes in this tiny little office. So we decided we wanted to hire a female. Now, I wanted Marco to have a say in some of the bigger decisions that we did. And one of the things that I decided to let him do was go pick a female. Now, I will say this, that the girl he picked was someone he knew, and they're friends and they have a relationship, and that's all good. But personally, whenever we first met her, I had an issue. I had a gut feeling that wasn't a good idea, but I wanted Marco to have a say. I didn't want to just immediately say no, because at that point in time, I was calling most of the shots. If I didn't want to do something, we didn't do it. If I wanted to do something, we did, and that's just kind of what the understanding was of how things were going to work. I had a gut feeling, and I just pushed it aside.
Frey makes a good point. Says, it sounds like he's starting out with small scams, testing the waters to see how far he could go. That's a really great point. It's a super great point.
Again, I wanted him to have this thing as his thing. Personally, when I bring someone in to hire for our brand, and you're meant to represent our brand, but you choose to, kind of push your own brand more, that's a red flag. So after we hired her, we started getting a lot of hate. She was in 3 videos, and the audience saw right through it.
That's a red flag.
And that kind of started the trajectory from where a majority of our comments in the videos were positive. This started that, kind of turn more negative. Another thing we did is we were reading comments where people, whenever we showed a nice car or we stayed at a nice hotel.
One thing you have to remain, and I'll say this for anybody that's going to start. Sorry, I got something in my eye really bad right now. Anybody that's going to start a YouTube channel, you can't read the comments. I mean, yeah, you can read them, but you can't every negative and believe me, I get negative comments all the time. You can't read those if you know what I mean, because that shit will get to you. And there has been negative comments that have gotten to me. And you got to just roll them off your shoulders, especially if you're going to be on a social media platform. 1000%. You got to just let that stuff roll. But this guy is always like, the haters, the haters, the haters. There's going to be haters, dude. There's going to be people that don't like you. There's going to be people that don't enjoy your platform. Look, I just had someone in the platform, 15 minutes ago, and they're like, "Oh, you're just doing this to get clicks and views, blah, 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 blah." And you know what you do? That's it. You delete them and you move on. That's it.
We ate at a nice restaurant. People seemed to like that. It was like it's a lot more subtle
Exactly.
flex. People seemed to say, we need more of this, we need more of this, we need more of this. And at this point, business was getting really, really good. We were making a lot of money, like more money than we've ever seen. And so, yeah, so I'll admit that we got carried away and started flexing too hard, started traveling too much, spending too much money on dinners,
Spending
stuff like
people's
that. We
money.
got carried away. So the combination of hiring the girl and flexing more, just it kind of completely turned the energy of the comments against us. So Marco and I are sitting at dinner
100%.
one night and we're just trying to figure out how can we get our audience back, get back to that positive thing. One thing to remember also is when we were doing this and we were growing, we're the first.
There are small claims lawsuits that are being filed. I actually have one up on my community page. You can read through it and watch some of the things. And I'm sure there's a bigger, deeper investigation going on behind the scenes as well, too.
Ones to do it. So when you're the first ones in an industry to do something, you get all the praise and support. Well, then once 4 or 5 other channels pick up and they start doing the same thing, your content starts to get saturated. At least in our minds, that's what it was. So we're trying to figure out, after 5 channels popped up talking about the same watches and doing the same deals, and it's just the same thing repetitively. We wanted to be a little bit different. We wanted to figure out how to kind of get ahead of the game or get ahead of the curve again. That's when we started traveling more. That's when we started flexing more and doing that. And we thought people would like that. And some did. But for us, whatever, they didn't. And it kind of turned against us. The idea from the blackout came. We're sitting at dinner one night trying to figure out how to turn this back around. And Marco suggested the blackout. He suggested, what if we just cut off all the social media, cut off all the noise for a little while and go do something productive? And that charity talk came up. We decided we were going to shut everything off, take a break, go give back to some charity, record it. And the idea was to promote the charities, also kind of, do something really nice for them. But at the same time, remind people like, we're just people on social media. And like, as mad as some people would get in the comments, we couldn't understand it. So we wanted to show off the charities and promote those, do something good for someone else, but also just kind of remind people like, don't get so caught up in social media. And like, we had people reaching out, like threatening to hurt us and like find us and stuff for a video. And so we did that. We did the blackout. Obviously it was a flop. And what I'll say to that is we didn't anticipate things blowing up as fast as they did or as big as they did. We were thinking it would take 2 or 3 days for
Dude, you knew what you're
stuff to
doing,
kind of
bro.
really escalate, and it did it in less than 10 hours. So we weren't prepared for that. The video, we quickly deleted it, because one thing I've learned about the internet is when the internet says you're something and you turn out to not be that, they're not going to let you in. They're going to spin it another way. And what the internet said was that
Always
we were
covering, bro.
scammers and we ripped everybody off and we made off with investors' money and we stole all this consignment inventory. That when we
The
came back
irony.
and absolutely none of that had happened, they just turned it on to now the charities are a scam. But one thing I'll remind you
They
is,
were.
for the people that do remember all that and watch the videos, there's a video that I'd have to find, but it actually shows me going to the bank, writing all these checks for 5 different charities. So again, when people want to scream charity scam and this and charity scam that, reach out to the charities and ask them if I sent them a check for this amount of money back on the weekend of July 4th. But anyway, moving on from that, I think the next big dramatic thing in our business was the Gerard Perregaux trend. I went out and I bought this $1 million diamond GP which people have asked about. It's been sold. I sold to someone. I can't say who. I won't say who. It'll pop up again someday. That's all I'll say about it. I bought it and I sold it.
Excuse me.
Now, the GP thing. I remember selling an AP Royal Oak skeleton for $380,000. The same day I sold that watch, we had gotten a Gerard Perregaux rose gold skeleton in from one of my consignees. He actually wanted to sell the piece. He made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I bought it. And I started wearing it because it was actually a really, really, really cool watch. I was in LA one weekend, and in the same day, I had about 3 people compliment me on my AP. But it was a GP. It got me thinking. I started putting calls out in some dealer groups, and I was getting offered these things left and right: 30,000, 34,000, 35,000, 36,000. So I recognized that in this industry, this was an unrecognized brand. This was an unrecognized model. I started looking up specs and comps on it, and uh, the watch was extremely, extremely similar to an AP, but it was a tenth of the price
Really,
for this,
Johnny?
for a very, very similar look. So I did what anybody else,
Wow.
any other business person would do, and I went out and bought every
Was it up
single one
for a
of them I could.
million?
I think at one point I had 12 rose gold GP skeletons. I had 7 or 8 black ceramic ones. I had 8 or 9 of the stainless steel ones, and I was buying them all cheap. And yes, I was promoting them. It's a business. GP is a business. Rolex is a business. My business is buying and selling watches. I was never a brand ambassador for GP. I was never contacted by them. I was never paid by them. I just recognized an opportunity in the market to
600
promote a
grand.
watch that did not get a lot of recognition.
I see it.
And I bought everything I could, and I held them until I could sell them for a profit. That's how business works. And if you hate me for that, then that it is what it is. But it's a business. Now,
I just looked at it, yeah.
one of the things at
Wow.
Dallas that started, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So I start this GP craze, and I think at the point, like the highest point, we had maybe 400 or 500,000 invested into GPs that were just sitting there. So I will admit that some frustration started growing in the office because
I'm
uh,
gonna go on record right now, and Roman, Luxury Bazaar, um, Marco, they're all good, reputable people in this industry. I'm gonna go on record right now and say that. So if you are in a market for a watch, I would say Luxury Bazaar, talk to Roman, talk to Marco. David SW is reputable. You know, those are the people that I would go to for these particular big timepieces. The GP was a good move, and he did make the market kind of go up on those for a little bit. He was smart in that sense because he got them really cheap. He started to uh, corner the demand, and it went. They did go up. The prices did go up. So I will say that.
Vic and Dylan and
Excuse me.
Marco wanted to buy inventory,
Not his
but we couldn't
Marco,
because I
another
had money tied
Marco.
up in GPs
Marco
because I
Ferrante.
knew what the potential of it was. Nobody was really on board with this. Nobody thought that I could promote these enough to where we could make money on them. So that, I believe, is what really started some of the frustrations, is that I'm spending all this money on Gerard Perregaux and I'm not allowing them to buy anything. And I'm also not allowing them to sell them because I still think the prices are going to keep going up. That starts the frustrations. And then the next thing was our YouTube it had been growing up. The YouTube views had been growing up and it had been getting popularity. And there'd be a lot of
Hey
times when we're out
there.
and about
How are you?
and people would come up and introduce themselves to me, but they wouldn't
Good to see
recognize,
you.
Marco or the other people. So we talked in the office, and Marco and Vic and everyone wanted to get more screen time. So I started traveling
I don't doubt that.
to do just that. I wanted to step away from the videos a little bit. I was actually kind of getting stressed out with how much hate I was getting on the video. So I was like,
This
I
guy
want to step aside. I want to
is
give
so
you other
worried.
guys more screen time, give
The
y'all a chance to
haters.
build some characters in our story and everything.
Always the
And
haters.
the problem is that I would leave out of town for 3, 4, 5 days. I would leave
Because he's out
Darby,
gambling.
our videographer, and all the video equipment there, and I would come back from a trip 2 days before a video had to be posted, and there would be no content. Um, People just didn't seem motivated to pick up the camera and film something. They didn't seem like they wanted to go out of their way to grab Darby and tell him, come here, I've got a deal. And the few times that he did film a deal, he just, just the way he expressed it was that there was no energy, and that it wouldn't have made for a good video. So he just never shot it. So it's kind of like people come to me and say they want more screen time, but don't want to put in the work to do that. That grew some frustrations. Another part of, and this is just me being honest with how I felt at one point in our business, was I felt like I was putting in 80% of the work, but Marco and I were 50-50 business partners, which means he makes the same amount of money I do. I'm not a greedy person, and I never wanted to make more money than Marco. I also didn't want to approach him and have that conversation of, since I'm doing more work and I'm doing all the content and everything, I want more equity. I honestly, I wanted to avoid that conversation and avoid how messy that would have been. So I decided that if I wanted
Dude,
to, if I was going to work this much, I want to make more money, but I don't want to take money from them or the business. So how do I do that? I wanted to start an apparel company down the road. And I knew that if I could build out a personal brand, then I would eventually have the opportunity to sell personal branded merch.
Order one off the site and see if
and that would be my payday.
Oh,
so that's where the inspiration for the second YouTube channel came. Was I have this business, yes, and I have this following that loves watches, but I was doing reading and meditating, and I work out and I eat a lot, and there was this whole other side of my life that wasn't getting put on video that people enjoyed watching. So my idea was start a personal channel, post a video every day, and start building this brand and this following. Then eventually, whenever it gets big enough, I can sell merch, and that's going to be where I make my extra money. So I start the separate channel. I start traveling a lot more. I'm coming out to LA a lot. And this is where things kind of start the trajectory of us splitting. Us splitting was never like that, came way, way, way after that. As I'm traveling, I'm starting to meet more and more connects in LA. I'm realizing that I absolutely love coming out here. I love doing deals that are all over the place. I never know where I'm going to end up.
Hookers,
the beach,
blow,
the mountains. It was just a whole new vibe, and it was something I wasn't used to yet. So I remember in one video, I was out there, and I met this guy who was he talked to me about wanting to start partner up with me. I hadn't really seriously started thinking about expanding to LA until I met that gentleman in Long Beach. We got to talking about it. I came back out a couple of weeks later, and we went and looked at some offices, kind of just testing, feeling it out. But by this,
you said it, testing. Freya was right. Testing. Yes. Testing it. JBB says, listen to Anthony Fair's nonstop yapping is downright excruciating. I feel for his former cellmates. Foreshadowing, yes. Testing. We were testing it out.
At this point, the idea of, or the thought of taking on a business partner in LA that could run the store while I'm back in Dallas, and I could make trips back and forth. That's what got me interested in the idea of expansion. So we started talking about that. Again, there's still,
damn, I wish I got one of those.
There's still a lot of frustrations growing back at the office when I'm gone. It's kind of, and I'll admit it, things were the way I wanted them, and I was the one that made the rules, and I was the one that called all the shots, and I was the one that told everyone how things were going to be, but I wasn't there. So I can completely understand Marco and the guys growing frustrated with me, telling them what to do and telling them they can't spend any money because I'm buying all these GPs and we're going to make a lot more money off of this. And they can do this, they can't do that, but I'm also not there in person doing it. I'm just I'm like traveling, I'm out living life. And, I get it. And
he essentially knew that there was no money with those guys anymore. And then when he went to LA, I'm starting to figure this out. He essentially knew that the business in Dallas was dead, or He knew, because just like he said, me and Marco were 50-50 partners. So everything they were doing, if that was the agreement, they basically were splitting down the middle. Now he has someone come along, or someone that he talked to and scammed, and found out this independent investor that was going to invest in Anthony. So what better thing to do? Shed the dead weight, go to LA, start your own company, and then you become the 100% profiteer, and you can run your bigger scam. That's what happened. Shed the dead weight, leave them in Dallas. I go out to LA. I someone that's basically sugar daddying me, that's going to invest in the business and start this business that I wanted to do in LA because I couldn't raise the, do in Dallas because I couldn't raise the money. I'll go to LA. This guy's going to give me the money to start my own store, etc. And he's going to fund me behind the scenes. And I'm going to work out some deal for ROI for this guy. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. And then he got a hold of all this money, and he was out there living this flex LA lifestyle, gambling, drinking, smoke, whatever, gambling, hookers, whatever, drugs.
That's where I think I made the biggest mistake, was trying to be the boss without being there and being, I was trying to be a boss instead of a leader. And that's my biggest mistake in this. So let's go back to, we're spending all this money on GPs. They're still not on board with it. And then I start selling GPs off, and we're making a lot of money. I think I sold 8 of the GPs that I bought over $80,000, which is, more than doubling the money we made on them. At this point, I think the next thing was the robbery. So I've been traveling now for months, taking all these trips, and Marco has a deal come up. And
now this is the first robbery, and I think the first robbery was legit. I think it did really happen, but the second one that was in that house was super shady.
He came to me and said, "Hey, look, this is a big deal. Now I want to take the trip. I want to do this." So I said, okay. I didn't have a lot of context of the deal. I know I booked plane tickets. I booked a security guard, and Marco was going to go do his thing. Unfortunately, we all know how that ended. And that cost us, with Marco getting robbed, that physically cost us about $1.1 million. Now, when a business all of a sudden loses $1.1 million, half of those watches being consignment pieces, you have to cover those you have to cover those up. Like, you got to cover that loss really quick before it really hurts the business. Or, my biggest
what
fear.
I'm saying is he saw the opportunity. This opportunity was already getting set up in LA. He knew it was coming. And I think just right around that time, all the massage stuff started coming out too. So what better way? I dumped them, and now I jump out to LA because I have this guy can invest a ton of money in me and do initially what I wanted to do in Dallas. And then that ultimately fell through, and then he was fucked, and he needed to go on to the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing. Excuse me.
Here was the perception that we weren't going to be able to pay these things off, or that we were an unsafe company, and consignees would start pulling their inventory, or people would be afraid to do business with us. So to keep that from happening, I put 2 of my expensive watches up as collateral for a loan. Now, I won't say which watches, but it was to the tune of an $800,000 loan to quickly pay off all those debts. Now, trying to think. There just seemed to be, after that happened, and I can understand, like, Marco experiencing that. I couldn't understand it at the time because I'd never been through it. I understand now how traumatic that could be after being involved in the home invasion that I was. But at the time, Marco had just been robbed at gunpoint, and we just lost all this money. And now I'm having to put up 2 of my watches as collateral on a loan to pay a debt that I didn't cause. Again, this is my mindset. I was frustrated. But I wasn't frustrated about the money. I was frustrated at the level of motivation for Marco to get back in there and help me do this. There just was no motivation. It was just kind of like this blank stare. I don't know. Now I'm out over $1 million of my personal money. and I'm having to step up my workload, and I'm not getting it reciprocated from my business partner. So my frustration started growing. Again, I want to stress, I didn't understand at the time. I was getting basically pissed off and frustrated with Marco without taking into account what he had gone through. I didn't understand it. I didn't know. All I know is that we just lost a shitload of money. Now I'm out money. I'm having to sell my watches to pay for this. And you're not coming to work to help me. And there's just no motivation to do anything. So I began getting frustrated. Now it's to a point where Marco's frustrated
And
with
I think this is where the shifting in the money, because he was like, we didn't have the money. So I had to sell off my collection to cover everything. So they're probably supposed to have that money on the books, but it wasn't there. So I think this is when the start of all the shifting of the money.
me. I'm frustrated with Marco.
Excuse me.
I'm frustrated with Marco. The team is frustrated with me because I'm not there. So I just decided that I was just going to keep leaving. If people wanted video time and they didn't want me in the office, then I was just going to leave and just kind of do my own thing. And then, now this is where the idea of maybe we'll just expand to
100%
LA, and
Caden.
I'll leave Dallas and I'll let them do their thing here, and I'll go to LA and do what I want to do.
See, again,
That's the idea.
he knew he had that investor out there. That guy was waiting. And I remember in the videos, him going out there and looking at spaces. I don't know if he disclosed the investor, but I remember him talking to him on the phone. He knew that guy was there. So after all this fell through, he was going to, like I said, I just bumped my mic, shed the dead weight. He's got a cash cow out in LA. The next thing that he's going to move on to, the next scam, and get away from these guys.
I want to say this all started, this like the height of all the frustrations were in November, December. I also started a coaching program, again, going back to, I feel like I'm doing 80% of the work, but I'm only taking home 50% of the money. How do I make more money? I'd had a gentleman call up and offer, X number of dollars for me to teach his son the business. And that got me thinking, how, if I could do this and I could.
Yeah, let's not poke at anybody's lifestyle, let's not have that kind of chat. I mean, I get it, that was part of his life and stuff like that, but I don't want to bag anybody in their lifestyle in the chat. So let's keep that, let's keep that clean, you know what I mean? Let's not go there, because people have alternative lifestyles and we don't want to be picking on those people. So let's be fair to that in that sense. We won't talk about that here. Let's keep it relevant to the subject, the scamming, the money, potential money laundering, the stealing of inventory, stuff like that. So yeah, let's just keep that clean. We'll keep that out of the chat.
Could coach some students on the side and it wouldn't affect my work, and I could help other guys build a business and make a lot of money doing it. There we go. That's another thing. So what did I do? I launched the coaching program.
Bottom line, you don't know. There's 110 people in here. There could be someone that has an alternative lifestyle and they live that way, and that's fine. They can do their own thing. We just don't want to bag on people like that. So let's just keep that part of the chat clean.
Now, I can't speak.
You do you in that sense. If that's your lifestyle,
office felt,
go with it.
But when, I can only imagine there were some frustrations that I had just now made, over $300,000 selling these coaching memberships when nobody else got a part of that. I don't know how everyone felt, but like I said, I can imagine there was frustrations on it, which only added to the already growing frustration. So it's just this slow thing of us slowly, everyone's getting frustrated with everybody while trying to keep a perfect face and make the world, not seem like anything's going on and not let people know what's going on. I'll also say that I made a lot of decisions without Marco. I didn't do it in a way that was to say like, I don't trust you or I don't have to answer to you. I just thought I knew more than anyone else, and it was my baby, and I felt like if I was going to put all the work into this to build it, then I was going to be the one to make decisions. I was also still salty about the whole Clove situation. It was like, the one big decision I let you have screwed us up, and then the second big decision, which was the blackout, also kind of screwed us up. So at that point, I was just tired of, I didn't want anyone else to make decisions but me. This was my.
So Jay says, what did this investor see in him? I don't get it. at that level investment for what he has to offer. So the thing is that if you have someone, and if you go back and watch, you can watch the stream. You can watch, actually, I'll hang on. I'm going to link the video and you can get kind of a full view of, because he had two of the people on this panel that I was on with the investors. Excuse me. Hang on a second. No, I can't find the video. If you haven't watched and you need to get caught up, we had two of the investors on a panel. I dropped that video if you want to watch it after this completes, and that'll give you a little bit of the backstory, you know. And they said, like, look, dude, I trusted you. Here, you know, the thing is that, and I don't want to bag on anybody's intelligent in business, because these two gentlemen that he took advantage of are very successful. And I think what happened was, you have someone that is on a social media platform. He's kills it on TikTok. He has millions and millions of views. And you're seeing this person that has all these nice watches, and they're on Instagram, and they have a 300,000 followers, and they're posting all this exclusive watches. And you're a watch guy and you have a little bit of money, and you're buying watches from this person and everything. And he's building trust with you. He's building trust with you. And you've now bought over $1 million in inventory from this person, and you've built that trust. Well, he's going to look at that and say, this guy has a lot of money. I wonder if I can start engaging him and talk to him. Maybe we can come to some type of agreement that he basically becomes my financial backer to buy pieces. And then what I'll do is I'll middle it and give him a cut. So when you have someone that's talking fast and talking in front of you like that, and building, you know, this potential ROI on your money, you might go, well, shit, this seems like it's a pretty easy thing that we can get into. You know, I buy some watches, he's going to middleman it and maybe upcharge 10%. He takes 5% for his time. I take 5% for my time. I've just gained 5% off my money that I just lent this guy, or whatever it is, 25%, 30%, whatever the margins are. So when you're looking at it, you're like, hey, that's a potential investment where I can, you know, make a little residual money off to the side. So when you're fast talking and you're gaining that trust with someone, you know, that might not be in and around this industry that much, it sounds like a good thing. And the guy flies out to you, you have a private conversation, you know, and he's telling you all about it.
That was my fault, and that was a fault on me that added to the frustration and the ultimate split.
Hey, Danny, how are you,
You
man?
know, I decided that we were going to expand to LA without asking. I decided I was going to keep traveling. I decided all these things,
Right, exactly.
and I wasn't giving Marco I wasn't really giving him a chance, and that is a fault on mine that I admit to. I want to let's go to December. Back in one of my videos, you guys saw me gift Jimmy a Hulk to leave his day job and his career and come work with me. The idea was that we were going to start a couple companies. I was going to come up with the ideas. Jimmy was going to be my right hand man to execute on all those things and help me run all these things. We do have an apparel company together. We started a consulting business. We started a software business that we were designing some software. The consulting and the software have since we've
Another
canceled
guy
those.
that he
We still have
used.
the apparel company, but back when the buyout happened, the reason I want to talk about Jimmy is back when the buyout happened, you guys saw a video where Jimmy decided to come here. And a lot of the talk online was that Jimmy saw the sinking ship in LA and saw the shit show that this was going to become, and he jumped ship before it was too late. And I can tell you that that is 100% the complete opposite.
True.
Jimmy, whenever the talk of me running, now the talk initially for Dallas was not for us to split. It was for me to turn over control
I would have
to
challenged him like
Dallas.
this.
I would own all my equity still. I'd keep my equity, but I would turn over control to Dallas so Marco and the investor could run it in their image and their way without having to ask me anything. And I would now have full control of LA. We would share everything, but I would get to decide what happens here. He gets to decide what happens here. That was initially how it started. Now, you guys remember Watch Nicholas, which is also one of the questions that Brian
Good
has on his thing
on
here.
Watch Nick
This Watch Nicholas guy.
for calling
Never heard
out
of him. I'd seen some of his videos. I don't know who he was. To my knowledge, I've never had an interaction with him. I don't know what prompted him
called
to
it from
start
day one. This guy was
coming
a
on and
scam
doing
artist.
12-hour live streams, just trashing me and every single thing we do. I don't know what the motivation behind it was. I ignored it for a long time, about 5 months, until it got to a point where people were, here's why I started responding to it.
Haters.
It got to a point where people were afraid to come on my social media. My
Haters.
business is derived from having guests, having clients, having personal interactions with people on my social media. But people were afraid of coming on there and then this guy digging up sensitive information, personal stuff that they don't want out there. That's when it started bothering me. I couldn't figure out why the guy was going after me and everyone else that we had on there. So I impulsively started reacting. I did start responding to trolls and haters on YouTube. I started responding to comments. At that point, I had been getting so much hate.
There's
haters,
someone leaving a
comment here. I doxed Watch Nicholas's family. Okay, to clear the air, I did not dox him because it was the wrong guy, for one. Two, the 5 months of videos, people are responding to me posting one thing on Watch Nicholas's so-called family, but no one has ever mentioned the fact that he posted my entire criminal record. He posted the address to my Hollywood Hills home, which resulted in a robbery. He posted my driver's license, all of my legal documents, everything that you could dig up on me. And I mean, honestly, I was in a state of anger and frustration, and I retaliated like that because I felt like I was being attacked for no reason. People I knew were being attacked for no reason. So it's what I did right? No. But I did it out of just an act of frustration and not thinking clearly.
If you want to see some battles, those were epic.
Watch Nicholas is posting all these videos. He's attacking everyone. I start responding to comments. I believe it. I mean, honestly, there was a point in this when I was getting so much hate that I had kind of flipped a switch and decided, I was like, well, if you guys want to hate me, I'm going to give people something to hate me about. Right now I'm doing the best I can trying to produce content and people are hating on me. So fuck it. You want to hate me? Why not give you guys a reason? That's when I started responding. That's when I came back and started talking shit to people. That's when I started intentionally posting stuff on social media just to piss people off. I think I actually remember having a phone call with Roman Sharf where he called me. He's like, dude, you're going to become the most hated watch dealer out there. And I was like, good, because hate's what people seem to like to talk about. So I'm going to make everyone hate me. I don't care. And I didn't for a little while. Do I regret that? Yeah. I kind of wish I hadn't done that, but it is what it is and I can't take it back. So I'm getting off topic a little bit. Going back to Jimmy. After the Watch Nicholas stuff started blowing up and after the massage stuff came out, which everyone keeps asking about this. Yes, I have a past. I've done stuff I'm not proud of. And if you don't like me for that, then that's your right. I don't care. I said in a video that everyone has something that they're going to take with them to their grave. That was mine. So whenever
just to tune in the audience, because I'm not going to pull it up, but if you want to do some research, you can type in Anthony Farah, Timepiece Gentleman, Travis Barker, and you will get a load of information if you want to check out the massage parlor.
That did come out. At first, I was mortified, but then after I sat and thought about it for a little while, I realized that now nobody has anything on me that they can post that's going to embarrass me. Like, the most embarrassing thing I've ever done is all over the internet. So I'm an open book. I have nothing else there. But if you want to judge me from my past, then judge away. It says more about you than me. I don't care. I did what I did. I did what I had to do.
Yeah, right.
Get what I wanted.
A good point.
And it is what it is. So there's that. Once that news came back out, so up until the massage stuff came out, the talks of me going to LA and Marco staying in Dallas was going to be, it was not a split. It was we were both going to own it, but we were going to have two separate things where I get to do my thing, he gets to do his thing. They were already looking at bringing in another investor to raise more money once we signed our contract for me to go to LA. The new investor happened to not already not be a fan of mine anyway, from what I was told. And so when that massage news broke out, they decided that they could no longer be associated with me, and that the only way they were ever going to be able to build the Dallas operation to what they could and get more money to come into it was if they disassociated with me, my name, and my brand. So that's when the buyout started being talked about. Now, we went back and forth for a few weeks trying to figure out exactly how to make this work and what would be fair. And Jimmy's actually the one that proposed giving himself in place of me getting paid. We had a long dinner one night with the entire team here, and there was a lot of emotion.
If you haven't gone over, you got to check out Mookie's content. It's really good. He does some really good like remixes. Mookie, can you type in your YouTube channel handle so people can go over and check out your content? He does some really good TPG montages and parodies and stuff like that. Type in your.
But it came down to the only way
check you out.
I was going to be able to get Dallas to pay me the substantial amount of money that they did was I was going to have to give up something big. The big thing being Jimmy,
Jorts Fanatic,
as their back-end operation
on YouTube.
I'll be honest,
Mookie's
if
good.
they had paid me,
it's got good stuff,
and Jimmy had stayed with me, I don't see much hope in Dallas. And I think they realize that as well, because that's how valuable Jimmy was. And it's very apparent with what he's doing with them right now. And they are going to crush it because Jimmy did that. But Jimmy didn't jump ship to abandon me. He left to help me, because the only way I was going to get $1 out of Dallas was to give him up and the YouTube channel, which, like, I didn't care about the YouTube channel. I cared more about Jimmy, and that stung. But
he loves,
at the end of the day, I also got a large check finally. So that's that.
As long as I got my money,
I just wanted to clear that
all
up.
It matters.
Let's see what's next. I'd say the next big thing.
Essentially, he just wasted what? That was a good 15-minute diatribe, and the end result that he just said, it doesn't matter because I still got a big check. That's all that mattered out of that whole diatribe, that he got his money.
What happened was I rented this house in the Hollywood Hills, and we were quickly involved in a home invasion. Now, the reason I want to talk about that is because I've read all the stuff online saying, oh, it's an insurance scam. Well, if anyone remembers watching any of those videos or any of the news clips, I come out and I blatantly.
I'm actually glad that my audience is watching this tonight, because this is just giving you the smorgasbord of shit that this guy has gotten himself into.
Say they didn't get anything. They got a backpack of mine that had, $30,000 or $40,000 of personal jewelry and cash. But other than
you
that,
have to be
they
a
got away
moderator.
with nothing. Now, for some of the people that can't put two and two together and are screaming insurance scam, I don't know how effective that would be for someone who puts their entire life on video on social media to try and pull an insurance scam, claiming all this inventory got lost, and then at the same time telling the news channels that they got away with nothing. I don't know how that would work. But people still jump straight to the conclusion of saying it was another insurance scam. It was not. It really happened. It was a traumatic story or traumatic event. And now, I wish I've known what that feeling was like back when Marco got robbed, because I would have definitely been a lot more sympathetic. So that happens. We find the penthouse. That's the next big thing that I've got. One of the questions here is, after the blackout, I popped back up on YouTube in the sprawling LA penthouse. What was the true motivation behind this, and was it a pitch to investors? You guys remember, like, the Watch Nicholas stuff went crazy, the massage stuff came out, we had the home invasion, and it just, I decided, like, I needed to get away. Like, I was stressed beyond belief. I cut the YouTube channel for a little while. We'd already talked about, we already showed off me signing the deposit or signing the lease for the penthouse, putting down a deposit, and getting that set up. And it just,
and going back to the insurance scam, what better way to cover it by being out in front of it and putting it on social media? So another deception.
you know, like I got stressed out, and I was getting to
There's
another
always
tipping point
stress.
where I did not want to be on social media. So I
Can't deal
turned
with
it
it.
all off, and I decided we were just going to operate in silence for a little while. Now, the idea behind the penthouse, when I first moved, or when I first started moving to LA, the idea was going to be we were going to get a small little office in Beverly Hills, like this one right here, by the way. Hope you guys can, we're here, the team sitting over here chilling, watching it.
Look how enthused they looked.
Say hi to everybody. The idea coming here was that we were going to,
We got like another 20 minutes.
we're going to
We'll be
have
out
this
of this
quiet
one.
little office in Beverly Hills. I was going to go live over in West Hollywood or Hollywood or somewhere. And we were going to have an office simply for safekeeping of inventory. And then we were going to be more mobile. I was a day out
Oh,
from
that was Z, wasn't it? To the left, all the way to the left. That was Z. I wonder where Z is now.
actually signing a lease on a different office space and on an apartment that I was going to live at and we were going to operate out of. When we went to this event for Super Bowl, I set up all of our inventory in the closet of this beautiful penthouse in the building across the street from where we ended up going. And I remember Ellis, the property manager for that building, came up, saw us shooting content, and said, you know, if you guys think this penthouse is amazing, you should see the one next door. He took us over next door to tour it, and I immediately
Totally high.
saw the vision of what this could have become. Now,
Because Wesley said that when Z came out and spoke with him, and then they started to discover what was happening, Z essentially started like shaking and was like, he was out of there. And he's like, I got to get back to LA. But I think that, and there's been a lot of speculation. Did Z know about what was going on? Or was he just truly scared because it all started to come out and he was taken for a ruse? And then he was like, I don't want to be involved in this. I'm going to distance myself as quick as I can and get the hell out of here. Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. So either he knew about it, allegedly, he allegedly knew about it and was allegedly in on it, and it started to come out and he got scared, or he didn't know about it. I tend to believe he probably didn't know about to the level that it was at, or just even knew about it at all. But I don't know, because when this book's involved in a business, unless you have two separate books and you're running a hot book on the side, or just not even running books and you're just putting in numbers in the books that you think are the books, I don't know. It's very questionable.
also something that people don't know was I didn't just have this grand vision of what this could become. I also had an investor
DJ in the
that was
house.
going to be backing me with a
What's up, dude?
substantial amount of
You
money.
doing well?
And when I told him I was coming to LA, I told him I want to do something bigger than anyone's ever done. And he was on board. Like he'd been an avid friend and follower for a while, been a client. He was on board. So I made the decision to get the penthouse with the idea that I have an investor coming in with a lot of money. I have a
Scams,
significant amount of money coming
deceptions.
from the Dallas buyout. And then personally, I had a little over $2 million in my own watch collection.
Right.
So financially,
Spreadsheets.
I
Remember
was
the
set
spreadsheets?
to make this thing work. As ludicrous and as big as it was going to be, I was confident that I could have made it work. Now, what ended up happening after I signed that lease was we had the Hollywood Hills home invasion. We had the Watch Nicholas drama. We had the market take a shit, so completely stop. Stock markets are going crazy. The crypto market's going crazy.
You think
Everything's
that would be a
dropping. The
sign to
watch
probably
market, like
stop?
people are just are not buying. So first thing that happened was my investor pumped the brakes. He's like, you got all this, you got this clown on YouTube trashing you, you've got all this stuff happening.
The haters.
The economy's like doing who knows what, and it just made him nervous. So he paused. So I didn't get that money. The second thing
I didn't
was
get that money.
Dallas and I had
All he cares about
an
is money.
agreement, and I had an expectation of when I was going to be getting paid.
Dude.
And I banked on getting paid on the dot.
Dude, All this guy is worried about is money, 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 because we know what he was doing with the money. He was taking it, not paying back his investors, not paying back his consignees, and he was going to Vegas and he was gambling. So we know $5 million, $5 million gambled away of consignment watches, money for that flex lifestyle.
That amount, and it didn't happen. It was delayed.
Self-admitted, by
Jimmy
the
did a
way.
video on it talking about it, and
Self-admitted.
it didn't happen when I expected it to. But that's how I didn't bank on it not happening. I impulsively made these decisions thinking there's no way my investor's not going to come in, and there's no way Dallas is not going to pay me. So that's why I went and I spent all this money and did this. Now, the money that I spent, because I hadn't gotten Dallas's money or the investors yet, was mine. I sold most of my watch collection, rented did all these things here, put all the money into the penthouse, and then as I've spent, I'm not going to say what I've spent, but it's to the tune of over $1 million on the penthouse from my personal watches. Now, I got to a point where the investors paused, and I haven't been paid from Dallas yet. The watch market's completely stopped, so we're also not selling very much. And what we are selling, I'm selling a lot of stuff at losses. It comes to where I have to make a decision of how much more of my money do I want to risk putting in to hope that one of these two big things turn around and hope that the market turns around before it's too late. And then I realized I actually hated living downtown. It's dirty, it's disgusting. I didn't believe people whenever I was moving here and I said we were going to go downtown. People kept telling me, no, you're not going to like it. Again, I'm this kind of person that when I have my mind set on something, that's what I believe and that's what I do. And I've not been very good at listening to outside influence.
That's what I think, Sam.
So I didn't believe it when people told us not to go downtown. I 100% believe it. It's just not safe or appealing for people in our industry. And I just made
he wasn't dumb. He knew what he was doing. If I can get out to LA, I smooth talk some people out there. Maybe I find an investor, sugar daddy, or whatever his business is on that side. I have someone that's funding me. I can start using this to fund my lifestyle and then shift around the money as money is coming in and trying to pay back my back consignees or investors. And it blew up. His spending was way over the income that was coming back. And he got caught. It got caught up to him finally.
A decision that cut the losses.
There's legendary videos of him going out to like Vegas and just throwing down like $100,000 of probably someone else's money and just blowing it, saying, all right, I'm going to blow it. I'm going to put it all on black. I mean, it's crazy.
And get out. And let's go back to the beginning and start from what the original idea was going to be.
That's
and I'll tell you right now, I couldn't be happier. Our drive to work here in Beverly Hills is amazing. There's stuff to do. It's clean. Living in West Hollywood, where we're about to move into, I'm going to enjoy it so much more. So I saw a comment a minute ago. Actually, I'll get to that in a minute. Well, I'll take a few more comments. So the penthouse, I took a loss. I learned a lesson.
100%.
It's, people, I saw a video where someone was talking about like, he just doesn't care. It wasn't his money, because there's no way you can lose $1 million and not be affected more than I am. Trust me, I'm affected. Like it stresses me out and it bothers me. But the fact
that
is that
funny.
up until that happened, people couldn't tell me no. I didn't have people around me that would tell me no. And when they did, I didn't believe them. I still did what I wanted.
Again, not taking blame and shifting the blame on other people. They weren't there to tell me no. There weren't people around me to tell me no. So I kept going. I kept doing the bad things. This is such a very telling interview. I hadn't watched this in a year, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity to go over this and review it tonight. And again, he's using my questions that he should have been using on the interview with me. But this is a very telling interview, and there's a lot of irony here. So I want to appreciate everybody this evening for hanging out. I know this has been an extremely long stream. We probably have another 15 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap this up. I know it's late on a Sunday night for some of you, but I want to appreciate all of the people that have come in, all the new people to the channel as well too. Again, I am not a watch YouTube channel. What I do here is true crime content. We get out there and expose the scam and scammers and deceptions as well. And I wanted to bring this to light because I had some history with Anthony. And as you all know, as my watch collector friends in the chat room here, and believe me, I love wristwatches. As you all know, this TPG saga. So my crew, my true crime crew, is really just getting caught up on this. But I thought it would be a great subject matter to bring over this kind of crossover content, and they love it. They absolutely are pulled in by it. So welcome into the chat, all the new people that have subscribed tonight. And I appreciate y'all being here. So let's finish up the back end of this stream here, about another 15 minutes. And then when this stream ends, I know JJ is streaming on his channel. So if you watch content, just hang out here when this closes, and it's going to bring you directly over to his stream.
And that's that was my ego getting out of control. Now, having lost half my money in 2 months to something like that, it's a humbling experience, if you want to say that, or if anything, it's a lesson. Like it really kind of taught me to pump the brakes and ask some people. And if the majority of people say that's probably not a good idea, then I really need to calculate it and like take that into consideration, which is something I just never did before.
There's some things going on behind the scenes.
So let me look at a couple of these questions.
Again, these are my questions he's using.
One of the questions is, how do you deal with so much hate? I don't know how a lot of people deal with it.
Haters.
I'm the kind of person that actually uses it as motivation and as fuel. And, they say all the time that if you don't have haters, you're not doing something right.
The haters.
And that's true. Like people hate because they have a void in their life. They have something they're insecure about going on with them, and they just put that frustration on them. Well, for me, I feed off that. I read a lot of these negative comments, and I just use it as my ego is like, you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to show you how I can do it, and I'm going to do it bigger and better than you thought, just to piss you off and prove you wrong. And that's how I look at all hate. Is every time someone tells me I can't do something, or tells me I'm not worthy of something, or that I'm a piece of shit, my job is to, or my goal is to prove you wrong. So another
great business model.
Oh, here's a really good question. With the setbacks you've been through, why do you think people in your crew still trust you enough to be their leader? The simple answer is because no matter how bad things get, I always take care of my people. I would, getting rid of the penthouse, I did that so that Darby and Liz can keep their beach house. I did that so that we can keep eating out, so that I can keep all of my employees on the staff. So we can keep doing these things. And I've always been like that. Even in the Dallas operation, I went out of my way to make sure that people felt appreciated and people enjoyed their job. And yes, I overpay for positions because I want people to be comfortable coming to work and knowing that their bills are paid. I don't want stressed out salespeople that are like desperate to get a sale because they got to pay rent. Whenever your bills are paid and you're happier, you're actually more motivated, and you're motivated to work harder and more effective than you ever did before. Something I saw a minute ago in one of the comments was, or somebody actually made a video about how much of a tyrant I am and how hard I am to work for. Well, because 2 of the salespeople have left. Now, here's the thing. 3 of my salespeople did not leave on their will. We let them go.
You couldn't pay them.
Nothing bad. They just weren't a match for the company. They weren't a match for the brand. And one thing that I was bad at in Dallas was I would hire people whether they had experience or not.
All right, I'm going to double this up a little bit.
Literally everybody I hired in the office, I hired if they passed a vibe check for me, with the exception of Mike. Mike was actually very qualified. But the problem was I hired people on a good vibe because I felt a connection with them and I wanted to give them an opportunity. The problem that I had was I didn't fire people or let them go when they weren't performing. That was a change in how I wanted to run this business. I was going to give people 60-day, 90-day trial runs. And if I felt like they were a good fit for the company, we would keep them. If in that 60 or 90 days, we decided that they weren't healthy for the team, they were not as motivated as I needed them to be, or they just weren't getting it, I couldn't keep them on. I couldn't keep dead weight on trying to run a small operation if someone didn't show up to work wanting to get it done, wanting to go after it, or someone that I simply felt like I could trust when I'm not there. And if one of those, any one of those criteria were happening, I had to let somebody go. So that's why we've parted ways with 3 other people. Let's see.
My question
again. I'm going to actually open it up. I think I've gotten most of the questions on here. Here's something that I know a lot of people have asked and are wondering is, do I still talk to Marco? Do I talk to Alfred? Do I talk to the guys at Grand Caliber? And the answer is no. I talk to Jimmy because we still have a company together. We are still friends, and I do wish them nothing
It's
but
at
success.
it's at 1.5.
But my
He's
stance on Marco and Alfred
on
is
Coach Kane right now.
back during the home invasion, Alfred made a comment on Twitter that said no sympathy, to be honest. For me, that is after me hiring someone that drove across the country and just on a whim giving them a job because they asked, and doing everything they could to make sure you went on trips. And I offered to give you phantom equity in a company because you were performing really well with sales. And I offered to give you a salary, even though nobody else had one. You know, the
There
things
you
when I go
go.
out of
You
my way
said
to
it.
make your life better and easier, and then you comment something like that, you're dead to me. That was it. That was the end of that. Kind of a similar thing with Marco was this watch page, fake watchbuster, posted a bunch of dumb shit with zero facts about it, you know, just more gossip and
A
drama.
hater.
And he went on and liked it. And that just kind of was for me, that was a stab in the back. And I have not spoke to them since. I'm at a level where I don't hate anybody. It's just
Doesn't hate anybody, guy.
I don't hate them, and I don't wish that they fell or anything like that. I just wish to not speak. It's just they're not a part of my life anymore, and that is what it is. But yeah, somebody's saying baller busters or I don't know, not fake watch, but baller busters or something like that.
No, he's wearing
But
other
that's
people's
the stance on
watches.
that. I think Jimmy is a great fit for the face of that company. I think because people ask me what's going to happen with them, I think Jimmy can take that company and turn it around. I think if he becomes the face and he becomes the head dog there, then they have a chance at success. And that's the only thing I'm going to say about that. I want to open it up. Let's do like 10 more minutes of questions. We're at about an hour and 6 minutes. So if there's any questions, Liz, do you see anything on the YouTube?
Right, I'm gonna close this out. I essentially want to just get through my questions. There's really not much more from what I remember. It's just kind of a lot of sitting and waiting. But if you all want to continue the last 15 minutes, I'll drop the link in the chat. There's really not much more from what I remember, but I just wanted to get through that. So again, you know, I listen. It's probably gonna be, you know, the last one I do on these for a while to kind of cover this series. If there's any other new information that comes up, or if you start, I'm going to tell you right now, he's not leaving YouTube. He's going to come back. He loves this shit and he loves the limelight. So, you know, we'll keep an eye out. But again, I want to do these couple of streams to get his name back out there for the biggest, you know, for being a scammer, for coming out and essentially saying that, oh, you know, he didn't take any money. He didn't take this. He's $5 million in debt. It's debt. Yeah, but it's debt of other money, other people's money that you could not pay back. And that was very, very clear on JJ's stream the other night when we had the two investors that were on and, you know, come to the tune of one of the gentlemen, he took $1 million and the other gentleman was just around $200,000. And he'll be back on YouTube. Believe me, he's on IG right now, but he'll be back on YouTube. Let's play this really quick. We'll do a couple of these before we head out. Someone that owes a lot of money, I probably wouldn't be flying all over the country. I'd probably start figuring out how I'm going to pay people back.
Well, that's why you're sitting there behind a YouTube channel and not 5 million in debt.
This guy just totally roasts himself all the time. He totally just roasts himself all the time. And just we can't forget this, the plastic cups.
One, I'm young enough. Two, I'm confident enough that I'm always going to make money in something. If I gave up if I never sold another watch tomorrow, I could start selling paper cups, plastic cups, and I'll do good at it.
All right. Well, I hope all of you have had some fun with me. I know this is a little bit off from our normal content, but I thought that we could start getting into some of these scams and deceptions and calling these people out for who they really are and exposing it and putting it out there for people to know. You know, don't get involved with these people. Do your due diligence. There are many, many great dealers in this watch industry that do it the right way. I would say the two top that come to my mind right away would be Roman at Luxury Bazaar. I would talk to Marco Ferrente there as well. And I would also stand behind David SW, as I have had many good experiences buying wristwatches from them as well. So do your due diligence. Don't do any business with this guy, but believe me, he will be back. He will be back and we will be waiting. So with that being said, I want to welcome everybody in this evening that has subscribed to the channel. I saw a lot of brand new faces chatting this evening. Again, we're a true crime channel, and we also do scams and deceptions as well. We have followed the Idaho 4 case. If you have have heard about that or any particular interest, I have a lot of content on my homepage about that as well. And we cover other cases as well too, smaller cases that need to be brought to light and try to find justice for these victims, because that's what we do here in this community. So thank you all for being here. I hope my other content is just as interesting as the stuff that we've done tonight. I've done a nice crossover with my panel of YouTube subscribers that have been here, and they're really enjoying this as well. So we'll let this sizzle for a little while. We'll let it bury out, and maybe we'll come back with some updated information in a week or two or a couple weeks and do another one of these to get you all caught up. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you all. Come over to the other lives. We have great content over here. I'm sure you'll find it to be fascinating if you're into this type of stuff, the true crime stuff. So thank you all for being here. Again, I'm going to head out here. If you want to watch content stream, just stay right here, and it's going to bring you right over to JJ's Watch Hangout. I'm going to go hang out on that panel for a little while and hang out with those guys. So I hope I see you guys over there. If not, have a great Sunday, and I'll see you all soon. Take care, guys. Have a good night.